Frank Reynolds.
Good evening. Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy is going to marry Aristotle Onassis, the Greek financier. The wedding probably will take place within a week. That announcement was made today by Mrs. Kennedy's mother, Mrs. Hugh Auchinloss of Washington. Mrs. Kennedy, who is 39 years old, advised her children of her plans before the announcement was made today. Caroline is 10 years old. John Jr. is 7. Onassis, who is in his 60s, has 2 children. They are Alexander, 20 years old, and his daughter Christina, who is 18. Onassis was divorced from their mother in 1960. Although Mrs. Kennedy and Onassis have been good friends for many years, news of their pending wedding came as a surprise to almost everybody. The diplomatic talks continue in Paris and Saigon, and rumors persist that a bombing halt may be near. A report in a moment.
This crystal is clear. Clear floor wax is crystal clear on your floors. Clear goes on clear, dries clear, stays clear. And it never yellows. Lets all the natural beauty of your floors show through brilliantly. Clear, the crystal clear look.
Come live in a Lemon Pledge treehouse and discover how easily Lemon Pledge gives you the beauty of waxing with none of the work every time you dust. See how fast Lemon Pledge cleans and waxes to a beautiful hard wax shine. And look at that Lemon Pledge luster. Lemon Pledge, for waxed beauty instantly as you dust, every time you dust. Make your house a Lemon Pledge house. Pledge, lemon or regular.
As of this moment, there has been no official announcement about a halt to the bombing of North Vietnam, and at last report, American planes were still carrying out raids against the North. The White House declined to say anything today about the continuing reports of an imminent breakthrough in the Paris peace talks. As usual, in the absence of official statements, there is no lack of unofficial speculation. Some reports suggest South Vietnam's government is blocking an agreement. But this seems highly unlikely in view of the fact that the Saigon regime really does not have the power of veto over decisions made in Washington. There are other reports, probably a good deal more substantial, that suggest the president is waiting only for further word from Hanoi before announcing the bombing halt. The delay might well be caused by uncertainty over North Vietnam's willingness to engage in really meaningful negotiations after the bombing is stopped. However, as we said, there has been no official announcement. At the White House today, one reporter demanded to know, why is no guidance coming from the White House when other capitals are talking? Why aren't we getting any answers? The president's news secretary, George Christian, replied slowly, and I gather emphatically, "That's a good question, sir. I choose not to respond, which is my prerogative." Richard Nixon chose to speak out on the possibility of a bombing halt today. Mr. Nixon made his comment while campaigning in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
I say today what I have said previously. If a bombing pause can be agreed to in Vietnam, if a bombing pause can be agreed to, one which will not endanger American lives, and one which will increase the chances for bringing a peaceful and honorable solution to the war, then we are for it. And the one man who can make that determination is the President of the United States. Let's let him make that determination, and if he makes it, we will support him, because we want peace, and we do not want to play politics with peace.
It is generally believed that the North Vietnamese are not particularly pleased at the prospect of having to negotiate with an administration headed by Mr. Nixon. This may help explain why we may be on the verge of a breakthrough in Paris. Some further thoughts now on the prospect for peace from ABC's Howard K. Smith in Washington.
President Johnson quit politics last March with 3 hopes in mind. None of them has materialized. He hoped that a position above politics would give him leverage to get his bills through Congress. In fact, the record has continued middling the poor. He hoped that he could ease the divisiveness of American life. In fact, George Wallace and the intolerant New Left have fed upon one another, and division has grown worse. Finally, he hoped to bring a break in the Vietnam War, and that has not yet happened either. But now, with Congress gone, with the election campaign on a set course, Mr. Johnson is now devoting his last efforts to doing something about Vietnam. He has put 3 conditions to the communists, and they amount to a reciprocal deal. They stay out of the DMZ, and we won't bomb north of it. They stop bombarding the cities of the South, as we have stopped bombing those of the North. They agree to the government of South Vietnam coming into the talks, and we will agree to the NLF having a role. If they agree, the bombing will stop, and it's hard to imagine that the war itself will last long after that. The president makes this proposal from a position of considerable strength. The communists are visibly hurting. They face the prospect of Mr. Nixon becoming president, intensifying a hard-line policy, possibly escalating for 4 more years. The communists thus may never again get terms as favorable as those they're now being offered. If this is Johnson's last chance, after which he comfortably retires, it is also Hanoi's last chance, after which they may face greater force from a fresh administration with a new mandate to win the war. Washington has not been noticeably good at predicting the communist mind, but most bets here are that though the terms may have to be rephrased some to save face, Johnson has a good chance to bring to a virtual decision the issue that wrecked his political career. This is Howard K. Smith in Washington.
The U.S. casualty report for last week shows 177 Americans were killed in action, 1,278 were wounded. 176 South Vietnamese troops were killed. Allied sources estimate the enemy dead at 1,526. The week's casualties on both sides were the lowest since August. In a moment, more results from ABC's special election poll.
Shell presents The Answer Man, and here he comes in the answer to our first question.
Somebody asked, what's the world's record for gasoline mileage? What must be the world's record was set in 1952 by 2 Shell engineers. They drove this modified Chevy and got 168 miles per gallon of gasoline. They used tricks you wouldn't dare try in normal driving, like rock-hard ball tires to cut friction, a special body without bumpers, streamlined to cut wind resistance. They never drove over 20, and they coasted whenever possible. Their gasoline, Shell's top quality as it came from the pump. Next question.
Someone told me that besides platformate, other ingredients help Super Shell's mileage. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. There are several ingredients. One is TCP, Shell's patented additive. It helps keep spark plugs from fouling, misfiring, and wasting gasoline. TCP teams up with platformate to give you good mileage.
Thank you. The Answer Man is brought to you by the makers of Super Shell, good mileage gasoline.
No matter what happens in the race for the presidency, the next Congress is likely to be Democratic. The latest ABC News survey shows that Republicans are likely to pick up fewer than 20 additional seats in the House of Representatives. They will need at least 30 to gain the majority. In the Senate, where Democrats now outnumber Republicans nearly 2 to 1, our survey shows the Republican gain may be only 4 seats. However, the Republican lead in state governors may increase by 6 on Election Day. Vice President Humphrey campaigned in Detroit today, trying to firm up labor support and to win back voters he reportedly has lost to George Wallace. At a Ford auto plant in nearby Dearborn and in Detroit's Kennedy Square, Mr. Humphrey pledged jobs for all, regardless of color and age, and he promised increased Social Security benefits. He urged workers to reject the propaganda that, as he put it, somebody will get your job, and it probably will be a black man. George Wallace has canceled his campaign appearances for tomorrow. A Wallace aide said the governor is beaten down by complete physical exhaustion. Wallace admitted he was tired as he left Fort Worth, Texas today for his home in Montgomery, Alabama. One of the reasons for his weariness has to be his nightly battle with hecklers. At times he has been forced to shout in order to be heard. Last night in El Paso, the heckling was even more intense than usual.
We present to you the next President of the United States, the Honorable George C. Wallace!
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be in El Paso. television folks, they make these kind of folks, but why don't you come on over here? My friends, I know that some of you are worked up tonight, but let the police handle everything, and let us stay quiet, because you've got some folks out here who know a lot of four-letter words, but there are two four-letter words they don't know. W-O-R-K and S-O-A-P. You don't know those two-letter words, I'll tell you that much. We can win this race for the presidency, and one reason we can win is that it only takes a plurality of the votes. If you will stand with me, I will tell the anarchists again that you had better have your day, because after November 5th, you are through in this country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
ABC guest commentator Peregrine Worsthorne feels that George Wallace and his presidential support is uniquely American, and that a man like Governor Wallace could not rise so high in British politics.
The idea that a man like George Wallace might just possibly become President of the United States makes the British feel rather smug. For whatever other faults our parliamentary system may have, it virtually rules out all dangers of a man like George Wallace ever becoming Prime Minister of Britain. It just couldn't happen here. I don't mean that there are not plenty of British demagogues around, or racialists too, for that matter. Still less that the kind of primitive views George Wallace expresses wouldn't find a good deal of popular support over here. I'm not claiming any kind of moral superiority for British politicians or the British public. It's simply a question of our system, which is quite peculiarly well designed to prevent rabble-rousers rising to the top. To get to the top in British politics, it's necessary to work one's way up the ranks of the party in Parliament, starting as a humble backbencher, then becoming a junior minister, then a cabinet minister, while all the time winning and holding the respect of one's colleagues in Parliament, who are a pretty discerning and critical bunch. It's not enough to be able to make stirring speeches to mass audiences on themes which happen to click with some passing popular mood. It's necessary to command the respect of one's colleagues in Parliament over a very long span. The disadvantages of our system, of course, is that it tends to preclude brilliant new political stars, like Jack Kennedy, for example, rocketing to the top while still in their early 40s. But it also precludes such unhealthy phenomena as George Wallace. In recent years, we British have been made rather enviously aware of the virtues of your system. We too would like it to be much easier for a young man of great promise to get to Downing Street, as Kennedy got to the White House, while still in the prime of life. But the meteoric rise of George Wallace is making us realize that our system may have some virtues after all. This is Peregrine Worsthorne speaking from London.
If you're just naturally grouchy, no one can do much for you. But if you're grouchy because your feet are killing you, there's nothing like Johnson's foot soap. This medicated formula with borax, iodide, and bran releases its power in hot water to soak away foot miseries, stimulate circulation, soften corns and calluses, put your tired, aching feet in clover. Let Johnson's foot soap ungrouch you. You'll be telling all your friends about Johnson's foot soap.
Joan, your Lanacane calmed my awful itching right down. Slept all night through. Great, Mom. I know Lanacane works fast on most any itching problem.
That's because Lanacane breaks the itch cycle. You see, itching causes scratching. Causing more itching, more scratching. But Lanacane calms irritated nerve ends, quiets urge to scratch, breaks the itch cycle, checks bacteria, speeds healing. So for itching problems anywhere except your eyes, get Lanacane medicated cream.
The United States leads the Olympics in medal awards and is just about supreme in the sprint races, thanks to men like Tommy Smith and John Carlos. Yesterday, they came in first and third in the 200-meter dash, and then stood on the victory platform with bowed heads, wearing black socks and gloves in a racial protest. Before the Olympics, there was a furor in this country over a threatened boycott by Negro athletes. Then most of them decided that participation in the Olympic would further the cause of civil rights in this country and abroad. The Negro athletes wear buttons reading Olympic Project for Human Rights. There were some boos in the stadium last night. ABC sports editor Howard Cosell spoke to Tommy Smith after he accepted his gold medal.
Tommy, would you explain to the people of America exactly what you did and why you did it?
First of all, Howard, I would like to say I'm very happy to have won the gold medal here in Mexico City. The right glove that I wore on my right hand signified the power within Black America. The left glove, my teammate John Carlos wore in his left hand, made in art, my right hand to his left hand, also signify black unity. The scarf that was worn around my neck signified blackness. John Carlos and me wore socks, black socks without shoes, to also signify our poverty.
And this is the motivation, the symbolism of what you did. Now, do you think you represented all black athletes in doing this?
I can say I represented Black America. I'm very proud to be a black man, as I said earlier, and also to have won the gold medal. And this, I thought, that I could represent my people by letting them know that I'm proud to be a black man.
The Nobel Prize for Literature was awarded to a Japanese today for the first time in history. Yasunari Kawabata, a 69-year-old novelist, was cited by the Swedish Academy for his contribution to a spiritual bridge spanning between East and West. He is best known for his work, 1,000 Cranes. Hurricane Gladys appears to be stalled in the Gulf of Mexico and is no longer regarded as a threat to Florida's Tampa Bay area. The season's 7th tropical storm caused 1 death and untold damage to tobacco and sugar crops on Cuba last Wednesday. Today, the hurricane winds dropped from 90 miles an hour to 75, and most of the steam seems to have gone out of the hurricane. Vice President Humphrey's forces in New York received a boost today when a court ruled that Senator Eugene McCarthy's name could not appear on the New York ballot. McCarthy himself had declined the nomination of the new coalition party, and the Court of Appeals ruled that Senator McCarthy's name could not be put on the ballot against his will. All the peace talk in Saigon and Paris has had its effect on the big stock exchanges in New York City. A report now by ABC economics editor Lou Rukeyser.
That talk about a possible bombing halt in North Vietnam is causing happy vibrations on Wall Street. Trading on the New York Stock Exchange was the heaviest on record for the first 3 hours, and the day's total of 21,060,000 shares just missed setting another record. The Dow Jones Industrial Average hit a new high for the year, moving up more than 3.5 points, and the average share of common stock gained 28 cents. The euphoria over Vietnam also bolstered stocks on the American exchange, where more than 8 million shares were traded, and the index was up 9 cents. Favorite targets of communist propagandists all over the world are the so-called warmongers of Wall Street. But as today's trading showed, there's nothing like the hope of peace to get investors really excited. Attracting particular attention were those consumer-oriented businesses, such as car manufacturers and savings and loan firms, that could be expected to benefit most from peace in Vietnam. The market has really been creeping ahead since July, amid news that the economy is still booming along. And since the exchanges are still shut every Wednesday, stockholders today had had 2 days to react to the rumors of a decrease in Vietnamese hostilities. It's plain they consider it good news for the economy. This is Louis Rukeyser in New York.
In a moment, politics and the men who came to dinner.
What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? Want to get out of that mess quick and easy? Use E. It has 25% more power cleaner than other leading sprays. This extra power removes the heaviest grease. You just wipe it off. Works best in warm ovens or in cold ovens. Easy Off with 25% more power cleaner. Makes life easy for nice girls like you.
Imagine spraying starch on a hot iron. But I'll do it to prove today's Easy On Speed starch is really different. It has the special GE silicone formula that prevents starch buildup. To prove how effective it is, let's spray here using Easy On without GE silicones. Now, let's see the difference. Look, with GE silicones, there's no starch buildup. Yes, Easy On won't build up, scorch, or stick. Guaranteed or money back. Try Easy On. It's different. This is a molecular model of poly 1,4-cyclohexylene dimethylene terephthalate. How about that? And I'm Joanna Barnes here to tell you what this unique molecule of Codel polyester fiber means in carpets. It's so special, it's patented. Every room in your house comes alive because carpets of Codel bounce back beautifully. Even a house full of kids can't keep Codel fiber down. That's why Codel is the fastest growing carpet fiber. If you can't remember the name Codel, ask poly 1,4-cyclohexylene dimethylene terephthalate.
We also make 2,2,4-trimethyl-1,3-pentane diol monoisobutyrate.
But that doesn't go in carpets.
Codel fiber has bounced back. Built-in.
Count on Codel, a member of the Eastman Kodak family.
The Alfred E. Smith Foundation Dinner, held every year in New York City, always has among its honored guests many of the most prominent political figures in the country. The dinner is non-political. The jokes are not always so. Among those attending last night's Foundation Dinner, hosted by Archbishop Cook of New York, were President Johnson, Vice President Humphrey, and Richard Nixon. And all three contributed to the jollity.
To my friend and former colleague, Vice President Humphrey, we all know that during the next 3 weeks we will be engaging in the final blows of the campaign, and we will have to judge the results of that on November the 5th. I do, however, want you to know that when you think of our differences, we have several things in common. We both come from rather humble backgrounds. Regardless of what some others may call us, he's the son of a druggist and I'm the son of a grocer. He's the former senator and I'm a former senator. He is the vice president and I was the vice president. And just 3 weeks from today, either he or I will be receiving congratulations as the winner of the election, and the other will be receiving the condolences of the loser. I've been in both positions, and winning's a lot more fun, I can assure you.
You made me feel very good, Dick, when you described the winner and loser. I've been reading the polls. Darn if you don't make it seem almost worthwhile. And I'm also very pleased that my friend Mr. Nixon is on the same platform with me, almost within camera range.
What the television networks and the United States Congress and my telegrams couldn't accomplish, Archbishop Cook has accomplished. And I want to congratulate him. In fact, I'm about to make a great political announcement. I wish I had Archbishop Cook as my campaign manager.
I was sitting here this afternoon thinking that whoever put this head table together should really be our president. Because I can tell you that we could use a good consensus politician in the White House. This is the first time that I have heard of Armistice Day being celebrated in October. course, you all remember we call it Veterans Day now. But you could still fool me with some of the old campaigners who are here tonight. Even so, I don't think any veteran could appreciate my feelings on this night, except maybe General Custer. This could be my last press conference. Pretty soon you won't have Lyndon Johnson to kick around anymore.
That's tonight's news and comment. I'm Frank Reynolds. Good night.
Can this exquisitely proportioned beauty survive? She's about to be tormented. Watch. 27 tons of sand and rock will crash down on our beauty. We're talking about the elegant new ballpoint pen from Bic, the refillable Click. Can the Click survive? We'll soon know. Dare we look? Yes, the sleek finish gleams. Retracting mechanism works perfectly, but will it write? Like all Bics, the new Click writes first time, every time. Its diamide ball never fails. Carry it proudly.
Pick up a beauty today. The new Bic Click. Refillable. 8 delicious colors. Very expensive. 49 cents each. You'd be silly to spend more for any pen.
Monday through Friday, in color. The ABC Evening News with Frank Reynolds. This has been a presentation of ABC News.